My name is Elena Hartley, and I'm 35 years old. If you'd driven past my life a few months ago, you probably would have thought, she's fine, she's safe, she's got it together. Little house with a tiny front yard where my overachieving rosemary bush tried to colonize the sidewalk. A car that wasn't sexy, but started every morning, even in February. Every bill on autopay. A modest retirement account that I contributed to religiously, even when it meant saying no to weekends in Vegas or quick beach trips my friends threw on credit. I built that life brick by boring brick, spreadsheet by spreadsheet, one practical decision at a time. I was the sensible one. The friend who shows up with jumper cables and a backup charger. The one who has ibuprofen, Band-Aids, and a protein bar in her bag at all times, just in case. The person people call when they need someone to stare down their bank account without flinching and say, okay, here's how we fix this. People say it like a compliment. Sometimes it feels like a label you slap on a storage bin. Practical, stackable, forgettable. For 6 years, I thought being sensible was the safest way to love someone. You don't make wild promises, you don't make reckless choices. You show up, you pay your share, you keep the lights on and the fridge full. You try your best to be the sort of person someone can build a life with. For 6 years, that someone was Jason Cole. Jason worked in pharmaceutical sales. Translation. He made more money than I did, traveled a lot, and knew how to say synergy in 3 different tones of voice. I teach high school history. Translation. I don't make pharmaceutical sales money, but I can tell you exactly how many empires have fallen because powerful people believed their own hype. We met in our late 20s, moved in together after 2 years, bought the little house 3 years after that. We talked about marriage in that vague, someday way. After this promotion, after we pay off that card, after things settle down. Things never settled down. They just tilted. It started with his parents. Edward and Marilyn Cole were the kind of successful that has its own gravity. Edward owned a commercial real estate company. Marilyn was a retired corporate attorney who'd kept the wardrobe and the contacts. They had a big house in the suburbs, season tickets to everything, and opinions about absolutely everyone. From the beginning, I could feel the calculation in Marilyn's eyes. She never said, our son could do better than a teacher. But she didn't have to. It was there in her questions. So, Elena, have you ever thought about going into administration? Principals make quite a bit more, don't they? Or Jason's ex, Lana, she's in management now, right? Regional something? Such a driven girl. Driven, as if I was a parked car. Edward was quieter, more measured, but the subtext was the same. They'd imagined Jason with someone who looked better in Christmas photos, someone whose salary matched his, whose title sounded important at charity galas. For a while, Jason was my shield. They love you, he'd say. My mom just doesn't know what to do with someone who has a job that isn't a LinkedIn flex. I wanted to believe him. I even did, for a long time. Then, about 4 months ago, something shifted. Jason started watching me like I was a problem he needed to solve. My job, my pay, my so-called lack of ambition. Don't you want more than this? He asked one night, gesturing around our perfectly fine living room like it was a cave. More than a house we own, food in the fridge, and a thermostat that works? I said. I know, I'm a monster. He rolled his eyes. You know what I mean. We could have a better life if you aimed higher. Private schools, nicer vacations, less scraping. We're not scraping, I said slowly. We're comfortable. You're comfortable, he shot back. I'm carrying the extra weight. It was a small crack. I heard it. I pretended I didn't. 2 weeks ago, the crack split open. It was a Wednesday night. I'd had a long day. Parent-teacher conferences, a student meltdown, a last-minute curriculum meeting. On my way home, I forgot to pick up Jason's dry cleaning. That was the spark. We were halfway through takeout when he realized. Where's my Navy suit? He asked. In the closet, isn't it? No, the one I dropped off yesterday. I need it for Friday. My stomach dropped. Oh, I forgot to grab it. I can go back. They closed an hour ago, Elena. I'll go tomorrow, I said. It'll be fine. His jaw tightened. You know I have that dinner Friday. I asked you to do one thing. One thing? I laughed, sharp. Sure, Jason. Just this one thing, on top of the 100 other things I did this week while teaching 60 teenagers how not to cite Wikipedia. His face hardened in a way I didn't recognize. This is exactly what I'm talking about. What you're talking about is dry cleaning, I said. We're not exactly on the brink of collapse here. He leaned back, eyes cool. My parents think you're a burden on me. The air went silent. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. Casual. I felt it like a bullet. And honestly, he continued, I'm starting to agree. Something in my chest went very, very still. Good to know, I said. That's it? He sounded almost offended. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Jason? You just told me that you and your parents see me as dead weight. There's not really a hallmark response for that. Maybe you could defend yourself, he snapped. Maybe you could try to prove them wrong. I don't have to prove anything, I said quietly. I work, I pay my share, I'm a good partner. If you and your parents don't see that, that's not my problem to fix. He looked frustrated that I wasn't crying, begging, bargaining. I could see it in the way his fingers tapped the table. You're so passive, he said. That's the whole problem. You just accept things. I didn't answer. I finished my food, put my container in the trash, and went to sleep in the guest room. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened, kissed my cheek, grabbed his travel mug, headed out to another long day at the office. I didn't bring it up either, but something had shifted in me. When someone tells you they see you as a burden, you can't unhear it. You can't unknow it. That Friday, I got home early. Teacher in-service day, students off, meetings cut short. I dropped my bag in the hallway and heard Jason's voice from the kitchen. He didn't know I was home. Yeah, Mom, he was saying. I told her what you and Dad said. She didn't even react, just sat there. I swear, she knows she's not enough, but she's too comfortable to do anything about it. My hand froze on my keys. He laughed softly. Sunday dinner's perfect timing. We need to have a frank conversation about the future. I can't keep carrying her. You and Dad have always said I could do better. There was a pause. I imagined Marilyn murmuring in his ear, fanning the flames. Yeah, Jason said. I think it's time everyone understands what's really going on. I stood there listening, feeling the temperature in my body drop, degree by degree. He wasn't just parroting his parents' opinions. He was building a case. I should have slammed the door, walked in, and confronted him. I should have screamed, demanded answers, thrown his carefully curated life back in his face. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I picked up my phone and called Edward. He answered on the second ring. Elena, this is a surprise. Hi, Edward, I said, and even I was impressed by how steady my voice sounded. Do you have a few minutes? Of course, is everything all right? Jason told me, I said, that you and Marilyn think I'm a burden on him. I wanted to hear that from you directly. Is that how you see me? There was a long pause. Elena, he said finally, that's a conversation we should really have in person. Why don't we talk about it at dinner on Sunday? That works, I said, but I need to know one thing now. Do you think I'm a burden? Another pause, heavier. I think you're a good person, he said. But Jason was raised with certain expectations. Financially, socially, it's complicated. It's actually pretty simple, I said. Thank you for your honesty, Edward. We'll see you Sunday. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. Then I made another call. Noah, I said when my friend picked up, I need a favor, a big one. Noah Briggs has been a private investigator for 8 years. Missing spouses, suspicious employees, insurance fraud. He'd seen people at their worst. I'd never thought I'd be one of the people asking him to go digging. Tell me, he said. I need you to look into Jason's last few months, I said. Travel, hotel bookings, credit card charges, anything that feels off. Elena, I know how it sounds, please, he sighed. Text me what you remember about his trips. I'll see what I can find. That night, while Jason hummed in the shower and scrolled through his phone in bed, I drafted a list of his recent work trips. Dates, cities, the hotel chains he liked to brag about. Saturday evening, Noah sent me a file. Hotel charges in cities where Jason had supposedly stayed in standard corporate rooms, except he'd upgraded. Nicer hotels, multi-night stays, restaurant bills for two, and a name that kept appearing on company itineraries and receipts. Lana Pierce, Regional Sales Director. Jason's ex-girlfriend. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. It wasn't just that he'd cheated, it was that he'd chosen her, the ambitious, impressive ex his parents still mentioned like a benchmark I'd never quite reach. Sunday afternoon, I got dressed for dinner in a simple navy dress and a pair of flats that wouldn't squeak on polished floors. Jason was oddly upbeat, like someone on the verge of doing something he'd convinced himself was noble. In the car, he glanced at me. You okay? I'm fine, I said. Just curious to see how tonight goes. He smiled, misreading everything. It's going to be good to get things out in the open. Oh, I said, I'm counting on it. We pulled up to Edward and Marilyn's house at 5 on the dot. The driveway was full. Aunt, sister, brother-in-law. Family gathering. Warm light spilled from the windows like a commercial. Inside, there were hugs, air kisses, clinking glasses. Marilyn complimented my dress in a tone that managed to sound like a condolence card. Edward watched us with an expression I couldn't place. We made it through salad and half the main course before Jason cleared his throat. "So," he said, eyes flicking to his parents, "I wanted to talk to everyone about something important." Marilyn smiled encouragingly. Edward's jaw tightened. "Of course, honey," Marilyn said. "We're all family here." Jason glanced at me, then away. "Elena and I have been having some conversations about our future," he said, "about what we both want and whether we're on the same page. Honestly, I think we've grown in different directions." I took a sip of water and said nothing. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. Marilyn nodded like a metronome. "I need a partner who's ambitious," Jason continued, "who wants to build real wealth, who can share the lifestyle I've worked so hard for. I just don't know if—" "Jason," Edward said sharply. He set down his fork and stood up. The whole table went silent. Jason blinked. "Dad, I'm trying to—" "No," Edward said. His voice was calm, but there was something new in it, something sharp. He looked at Jason, not me. "Before you say another word, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly." Jason swallowed. "What?" Edward's gaze didn't waver. "Who," he said, "is Lana Pierce?" "Stop!" "Ben Danai. Continue ChatGPT Danai." Jason's face went blank. "What?" he said, too fast, too flat. "Who?" "Lana Pierce," Edward repeated. "Regional sales director at your company. You've been spending quite a bit of time with her lately. Nicer hotels on work trips than your company usually books. Restaurant charges for two. Want to explain that to everyone?" The fork slipped from Marilyn's hand and clattered against her plate. Rachel's husband froze mid-bite. The room felt suddenly too small, too bright. Jason laughed, a brittle, paper-thin sound. "Dad, she's just a coworker. Don't lie to me," Edward said, and the room went colder. Jason's mouth closed with an audible click. Edward kept his eyes on his son. "After Elena called me Friday and asked if I thought she was a burden, I had to ask myself something. Why did I think that? What evidence did I have?" He spread his hands slightly. "And I realized I didn't have any, just your complaints, Jason, your narrative." Jason's jaw clenched. "Dad, this isn't—" "So I started paying attention," Edward cut in, "to your trips, your expenses, your company's billing. I still know people there, remember? I made a few calls." He looked around the table then, taking in each stunned face before landing back on Jason. "And what I found," he said, "was interesting." Marilyn whispered, "Edward, what are you talking about?" "Chicago, 3 months ago," Edward said calmly. "You were supposed to be in a standard corporate hotel. Instead, you upgraded to a boutique place across town. 2 nights. Restaurant charges for 2 at a place that requires reservations weeks in advance. The company only authorized half of it." He cocked his head. "Care to explain that?" Jason's throat bobbed. "Client dinner. Boston," Edward went on as if Jason hadn't spoken. "Same pattern. Denver, Seattle, always the same name attached to internal emails and calendar invites." His voice sharpened. "Lana Pierce." He let the name hang there. Rachel leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Wait, Lana? Lana? The one Mom never shuts up about?" Marilyn flinched. "Rachel," Jason finally snapped, "this is insane. Lana's my boss. We travel together sometimes, it's normal." "Is it normal," Edward asked quietly, "for there to be multiple HR complaints on file about a regional director having inappropriate relationships with people on her team?" Marilyn's head snapped toward him. "What?" "I still know someone in your HR department," Edward said. "They couldn't tell me everything, but they could tell me enough. Lana has a pattern. She blurs lines with people who report to her." His gaze hardened. "People like you, Jason." Jason's face went pale. "I asked them one last thing," Edward said. "If anyone had raised concerns about you and Lana specifically." He let out a breath that sounded tired, older than I'd ever heard him. "They didn't confirm it, not directly, but they didn't deny it either. And given everything else I saw, I drew my own conclusion." Jason's chair scraped back. "This is completely out of line. You had no right." "I had every right," Edward snapped, the calm veneer finally cracking. "My son has been sitting in this house telling us for months that his girlfriend is dead weight, that she's a burden, that she doesn't match his ambition. And all the while he's sneaking around with an ex who dangles status and money in front of him like a shiny toy." He turned to me then, and there was something like shame in his eyes. "Elena," Edward said quietly, "I owe you an apology." Jason swung toward me. "Dad, stop it. You're making this into something it's not. Lana and I, We just... Yes, I said softly. You just upgraded hotels and just ordered dinner for two and just found time to reconnect with your ex on every work trip you could manage. Jason stared at me, stunned. You knew? He breathed. Across the table, Marilyn's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I folded my napkin carefully, smoothing the crease. It gave my hand something to do. I had someone look into your travel when I overheard you on the phone with your mother, I said. You were very enthusiastic about Sunday dinner, about having a frank conversation about our future. My eyes met his. You weren't planning a talk, Jason. You were staging a public execution. That's not... He swallowed. That's not what I... You wanted an audience, I continued. My voice was calm, almost clinical. It didn't match the shaking in my chest. You wanted your parents to witness how noble and reasonable you were while you explained that you were forced, regretfully, to consider leaving your deadweight girlfriend. The unambitious one. The burden. Elena, But you left out the part, I said, where you were already auditioning my replacement on company time. Silence. Rachel was the first to move. She sat back slowly, eyes wide with disgust. Is that true? She asked her brother. You've been cheating on Elena with that woman from Mom's highlight reel? Jason's gaze darted around the table, looking for an ally and finding none. It wasn't like that, he said hoarsely. It just happened. We were traveling together, long hours, lots of pressure. Nothing just happens, Edward said. The line came out flat, final. You made choices. You chose to start something with your ex while you were in a committed relationship. You chose to lie to Elena. You chose to sit in this house and let your mother pick her apart. Marilyn winced. Edward... No, he said. You need to hear this too. He looked at Jason again. You made us believe, he said, voice thickening, that Elena was holding you back. That your life with her was somehow smaller, less worthy. You made us complicit in that lie, and we bought it because it fit what we wanted to see. His eyes flicked to me once more. That's on us, he said quietly. But what you did, that's on you. Jason's shoulders slumped, some of the fight draining out of him. He looked smaller suddenly, younger. Petty. I wasn't happy, he muttered. I felt stuck. Elena's fine with this. He waved a hand vaguely. The tiny house, the teacher's salary, the quiet life. I wanted more. So you cheat, Rachel snapped. Classic. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he said. There it is again, I said. It just happened. Like you tripped and fell into upgraded hotel rooms with your ex. He flinched. Elena, Marilyn said, turning to me with watery eyes. We were just worried about Jason having to carry more of the financial load, and... You spent years making me feel like I should be grateful your son didn't trade me in for something flashier, I said. You may not have said it outright, but it was in every question you asked. Every time you mentioned Lana's promotions. Every time you praised Jason for taking care of things when my paycheck came in like clockwork, too. She blinked. I didn't realize... I did, I said. I realized every single time. I just chose to swallow it because I loved your son. Jason's eyes finally met mine and stayed there. Elena, he said quietly, please. Can we just talk about this, you and me? We don't need to do this in front of everyone. You wanted to, I reminded him. That was the whole point of tonight, wasn't it? To make me small in front of your family, so walking away felt justified. He opened his mouth, closed it again. I spent 6 years trying to be a good partner to you, I said. My voice wobbled, and I forced it steady. I supported your career. I hosted your clients. I sat through dinners where your parents implied I wasn't enough. I watched you drift away and told myself it was stress, that I was being paranoid, that if I just held on a little tighter, we'd realign. I shook my head. And the whole time, I went on, you were cheating and writing a story where I was the problem. Your burden, your anchor, the thing you had to cut loose so you could finally fly. Jason swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I don't want your apology, I said. I want you to understand that you don't get to rewrite this narrative. You don't get to make yourself the victim who was held back by his unambitious girlfriend. You had an affair. You lied. You tried to turn me into your scapegoat. I pushed my chair back and stood. Elena, Marilyn began. I appreciate the meals, I said, looking at her and Edward. The holidays, the polite conversation. I'm sorry it's ending like this, but I won't sit here and let your son finish the monologue he rehearsed in your head. I turned back to Jason. I'll be moving my things into the guest room when we get home, I said. Tomorrow I'm talking to a lawyer about the house and our finances. We're done, Jason. Completely done. Panic flared in his eyes. You can't just, Elena, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. You had months to fix this, I said. You chose to keep cheating instead. The only thing you're sorry about is that you got caught before you could control the story. I picked up my bag. Rachel, I said, giving her a small, sad smile. Take care of yourself. She nodded, eyes shining. You too. Edward stepped aside so I could pass. As I reached him, he spoke low enough that only I could hear. For what it's worth, he said, voice rough, you were never the burden in this house. I met his eyes. Then start acting like it, I said, with the next person Jason brings home, if there is one. I walked out into the cold evening air, my hands shaking so hard I fumbled the keys twice before I got the car door open. Inside, in the quiet, my heart finally started to race. I put my forehead on the steering wheel and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my lungs for months. Then I straightened, started the engine, and drove away from the Coles' glowing windows and carefully curated illusions. Behind me, somewhere in that perfect dining room, Jason was finally sitting in the story he'd tried to write for me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't part of it. Jason didn't answer his father right away. He just sat there, frozen, like someone had pressed pause on him while the rest of the room kept breathing. His mouth opened slightly, then closed, then opened again, without sound. For a moment, he looked less like the confident man who planned to lecture me about our future, and more like a kid caught stealing answers during an exam. Dad, he said finally, voice low and strained, This isn't the place. Edward didn't blink. Then you should have thought of that before you tried to stage a public breakup, son. The room went absolutely still. Marilyn's hand hovered near her wine glass. Rachel's husband set down his fork without looking away from Jason. The aunt in the corner, who had mostly stayed quiet, leaned forward like she had just realized this wasn't a conversation. It was a reveal. Jason's eyes darted around, searching for an escape route. Look, it's complicated. No, Edward said sharply. It's not. Not unless you want to lie to your entire family right now. Jason swallowed hard. Dad, please, can we talk about this later? Not in front of Elena? Edward cut in. Funny. You didn't mind involving us when you thought we were all here to support you in humiliating her. Jason's cheeks flushed. For once, he couldn't hide behind his usual charm. Rachel leaned in, eyebrows raised. Jason, she said slowly, did you seriously bring Elena here to make some kind of spectacle? Are you out of your mind? Out? Jason's eyes flicked to her. You're not helping. I'm not supposed to help, Rachel snapped. I'm supposed to sit here and watch you tear apart the woman you've lived with for years. What is wrong with you? Marilyn finally found her voice. It shook. Jason, your father mentioned hotel upgrades and restaurant charges, and this woman, Lana. She blinked, stunned. Tell me you didn't. Tell me you didn't do something so reckless. Jason scrubbed a hand over his face. It wasn't planned. It was just long days, pressure, alcohol, hotels. Stop, Rachel said. Just stop talking. Her voice cracked clean through him. He sank back into his chair like someone had cut the strings holding him upright. Edward exhaled and turned to me again. Elena, I'm sorry you're hearing this like this. It's all right, I said. I already knew. Jason's head whipped toward me. You what? I folded my hands neatly on the table. I had someone look into your travel. I found out yesterday. Marilyn gasped softly. Oh my God. I wanted to hear what Jason would say tonight, I continued. What narrative he'd build. What version of me he'd present. I looked at Jason and watched his face crumble in real time. I didn't know your father would beat you to the punch, I said. Elena, Jason breathed. You should have told me you knew. You should have told me you were cheating, I said. We all make choices. That landed like a stone between us. Edward stepped away from the table and braced both hands on the back of his chair. Jason, he said, voice heavy with disappointment, you owe Elena the truth. All of it. Jason stared at the table. It started months ago, he said. 4 months. I nodded. That matched Noah's timeline. I was stressed. Lana was supportive. She understood the pressure I'm under at work. He looked up at me helplessly. She made me feel important, I said. Successful, seen? He blinked. The precision of it stung him. Yes, he whispered. Funny, I said. You never needed me to make you feel those things. You just needed me to be stable while you chased validation elsewhere. He flinched again. Marilyn covered her mouth, eyes shimmering. How could you do this to Elena? She whispered. You brought her into this family. You let us believe she was the problem. Jason closed his eyes. I didn't mean... That's the thing, I said quietly. You never mean the things you do. They just happen. Like hotel room keys flinging themselves into your hand. Rachel let out a bitter, disbelieving laugh. Edward straightened. Jason, answer one more question. Jason looked at him, defeated. Were you planning to leave Elena for Lana? Silence. Jason's shoulders sagged. Yes. Marilyn inhaled sharply. Jesus Christ, Rachel whispered. I didn't react. I had run out of reaction sometime around yesterday at midnight. Edward stared at his son like he didn't recognize him. After everything Elena has done, after supporting you, after helping you settle, after putting up with our judgment. Dad, please. Jason's voice broke. Don't make it worse. I'm not making anything worse, Edward said. I'm telling the truth. Something you clearly haven't done in quite some time. Jason dropped his gaze. Edward looked at me. Elena, what are you going to do? I pushed my chair back slowly and stood. I'm leaving, I said. I think this dinner is over for me. Elena! Jason stood too quickly, almost knocking over his glass. Please, please don't just... I'm not doing this, I said. Not here. Not with an audience you handpicked for your big reveal. This isn't what I wanted. This is exactly what you wanted, I cut him off. The only difference is that the story collapsed before you could finish it. Marilyn's voice trembled. Elena, wait! I turned to her. I don't blame you for wanting the best for your son, but you mistook money for character. And tonight, that mistake became impossible to ignore. Her eyes filled. She didn't argue. I grabbed my coat from the back of my chair. My hands were steady now. Elena, Jason said, stepping toward me. Please, don't leave like this. We can talk. No, I said, we can't. His face crumpled. Elena, we're done, Jason. I'll move my things into the guest room tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll call a lawyer to start dissolving whatever's left to dissolve. He took a step closer. I stepped back. I'm not letting you throw this away, he said, voice cracking. You already did, I said softly. And then I walked away. From the table, from the house, from the story he tried to write with me as the weak link he needed to sever. No one tried to stop me. Not Edward, not Marilyn, not Rachel, not even Jason. The front door clicked shut behind me, and the cold air wrapped around my arms like something real, something honest. I didn't look back. Not once. The house was dark when we got back. Jason's keys jingled behind me as he locked the door, but I didn't wait for him. I walked straight down the hallway, past the photos we'd taken on road trips, past the framed map of national parks he'd insisted we hang, past the life we'd built with equal parts hope and habit. I stopped at the doorway to the guest room. I flicked on the light. It looked small, unfamiliar, untouched, like a hotel room that had been reserved for emergencies. Fitting. Behind me, Jason finally spoke. Elena, please, can we talk? There's nothing left to talk about. Yes, there is, he said, voice cracking. There has to be. I turned to face him. His tie was crooked, his face blotchy. The confident, magnetic man who could sell anything to anyone was gone. All that remained was someone who didn't recognize the consequences of his own choices. Elena, he said again, stepping closer, I didn't mean for any of this to... Stop saying that, I said. You keep acting like you tripped and fell into an affair, like it was an accident, like the hotel rooms booked themselves, like Lana just appeared in your bed. His jaw clenched. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. I crossed my arms. Let's hear the truth, Jason, the real version. He hesitated, then sat heavily on the edge of the bed, rubbing his forehead with the heel of his hand. It started after that promotion Lana got, he said quietly. She became regional director. I didn't even want to work under her again. I knew it would be messy, but the company insisted. I waited. He swallowed. She said she knew I had more potential than what I was getting, that I should have been promoted with her, that she could help pull me up if I played the game better. I blinked. The game being office politics, he said, but the way he looked away told the rest. She flattered you, I said, validated you. Yes, he whispered. She made me feel valued. And I didn't, I asked. His head snapped up. No, Elena, God, no. You always supported me. You always believed in me. But with her, it was instant. It was like stepping back into a version of me that felt powerful. And you chose that feeling over me. He didn't answer, because he didn't have to. I sat down across from him on the storage trunk, keeping space between us. How long? He shut his eyes. 4 months. I clenched my jaw, holding in the sting. So the same month you started criticizing everything I did. Elena? You weren't projecting, I said. You were rationalizing. You had to make me look small so you wouldn't hate yourself for what you were doing. He folded forward, elbows on his knees, hands hanging loosely. I hate myself now. That doesn't change anything, I said. Would you have told me? Ever? He hesitated, and that was the answer. My voice softened, not with forgiveness, but with clarity. You were going to let your father ambush me tonight. You were going to sit there while he told everyone I was holding you back, that I wasn't enough. He shook his head quickly. It wasn't supposed to go like that. How was it supposed to go? He swallowed. I was going to tell them we'd grown apart, that I didn't feel supported, that we had different goals. I let out a humorless laugh. So yes, you were going to blame me. He didn't deny it. I stood up. This relationship is over. Elena, please, he said, standing too. Don't do this. Don't walk away like none of it mattered. It mattered, I said. That's why I'm leaving. His eyes glistened. I love you. No, I said gently. You loved the version of me who made your life easier, who kept everything steady while you chased validation from people who don't even like you. You didn't love me enough, to be honest, not even with yourself. He stepped closer. We can fix this. No, I said again. We can't. His breath shook. So what happens now? You move your things into the master bedroom, I said. I'll stay in the guest room. Tomorrow morning, I'll call a lawyer to start sorting out the house and finances. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Elena, you're serious. I am. A long, hollow silence filled the room. Then, quietly, he broke. His shoulders trembled, his breath hitched. His eyes dropped to the floor as if gravity was finally too much. Elena, I'm sorry. I didn't look away. I know, but you're sorry because you got caught, not because you did it. He pressed his palms to his face, exhaling shakily. I ruined everything. I didn't disagree. I walked past him toward the door, stopping only when he whispered my name. Elena, please don't hate me. I paused. I don't, I said softly. I just don't trust you. He winced, because somehow that hurt more. I left him in the room and went to gather my things. For the next 2 weeks, we lived like uneasy roommates. He tried, in small ways, making coffee, straightening the living room, asking how my classes were. But it was all surface, too late, too thin. And silently, consequences began to bloom around him. 3 days after the dinner, Jason came home looking shattered. They suspended me, he said. I didn't turn away from the stove because of Lana. His silence answered. Later that night, I overheard him on the phone with someone from HR, arguing, bargaining, trying to explain, trying to frame things as misunderstandings. By the next week, it was over. He had been terminated, Lana too. When he told me, I only said, I'm sorry. Losing a job is painful. He stared at me, eyes red-rimmed. You're not even angry? I was angry, I said, but I used it up. Now I'm just done. That same week, Edward called me. Elena, he said softly, I owe you another apology. I'm so sorry for the part I played in all this. You weren't the one who cheated, I said. No, he said, but I didn't question Jason the way I should have. I let his insecurities reinforce my own biases. You deserve better. His voice broke on the last word. I didn't know what to say. Thank you, I finally whispered. That means more than you know. He exhaled slowly. If you need anything, you call me. I didn't think I would, but I appreciated it. Jason's mother reached out once too, text message only. We're sorry. We didn't see clearly. You deserve better. I typed back. Thank you. I hope your family heals. Then muted the thread. Meanwhile, the legal process began. Paperwork, meetings, assessments, discussions about the house. Jason grew increasingly quiet through it all. Not angry, not defensive, just diminished. Some nights I heard him crying in the master bedroom. I didn't go to him. I couldn't. 1 month after the dinner, he asked tentatively, will we still be friends? No, I said gently. Not now. Maybe not ever. He nodded, wiped his eyes, and didn't bring it up again. And day by day, one truth settled deeper. I wasn't the burden. I had been the foundation. And Jason had mistaken stability for scarcity, reliability for stagnation, quiet loyalty for passivity. When in reality, I had been the strongest thing in his life. He just couldn't see it until it was gone. 2 months after the paperwork was filed, the house sold. Jason moved into a small apartment near his sister. I moved into a modest place closer to my school. Smaller, but bright. Mine. The first night alone, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and breathed. For the first time in years, the air felt clean. I wasn't sensible. I wasn't boring. I wasn't a burden. I was free. The morning light in my new apartment was soft, golden in a way the old house never managed. I sat on the floor with a cup of mediocre instant coffee, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, and let the quiet settle in my bones. It felt like the first real quiet I'd had in years. No footsteps pacing before a work trip, no sighs over dry cleaning or bills, No low-grade tension humming beneath every conversation. Just stillness. A month had passed since the house sold. The separation was clean. No children, no marriage certificate, no shared accounts beyond the mortgage. My lawyer commented that it was the least dramatic dissolution she'd seen all season. She had no idea how much drama led to it. Meanwhile, Jason's life seemed to tilt in the opposite direction. He'd been let go from the company. Lana had been terminated as well. Word spread quietly. Corporate gossip traveled through hallways faster than email. Some of Jason's coworkers reached out to me privately, apologizing for not seeing it sooner. I didn't reply. That chapter was closed. I had no interest in relitigating it. What I didn't expect was the next knock on my door. Marilyn. She stood outside my apartment on a humid Thursday afternoon, looking smaller. Or maybe just less fortified. The armor was gone. In its place was a woman who looked like she'd aged a decade in 8 weeks. "Elena," she said softly, "do you have a moment?" I hesitated, then opened the door wider. "Come in." She stepped inside slowly, eyes drifting over the small living room, the potted plant I'd overwatered into near death, the mismatched throw pillows. Nothing flashy, nothing curated. "Just mine." "I won't take long," she said, smoothing her blouse with trembling hands. I only wanted to say, "I'm sorry." I stayed standing. She did too. "Marilyn, you don't owe me anything." "Yes," she said quietly, "I do." She looked down, gathering her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice cracked slightly. "I spent years making you feel small. I didn't do it directly, but that doesn't make it any less cruel. I let my own expectations, my own insecurities, shape how I saw you. And because Jason echoed those insecurities back to me, I believed him more than I believed what was in front of me." I didn't speak. She continued. "He told us you lacked ambition, that you didn't want more out of life, and I let myself believe that more meant money or status or some arbitrary measure of success. I never once asked what you wanted, what made you feel fulfilled. I never realized how unfair I was being until everything fell apart." I swallowed. "Jason made his choices. They weren't your fault." "He made them, yes," she said. "But Edward and I created the environment where he believed those choices were justified, where he thought he had to choose someone shiny to be worthy of our approval." Her voice softened. "You deserve better than the way we treated you." For a moment, I saw not the polished attorney with perfectly rehearsed composure, but a mother afraid of losing her son forever. "He told us," she said, "that he doesn't expect you to forgive him, but he hopes one day that you'll be happy." I nodded slowly. "I will be." She exhaled shakily. "Good. That's all I wanted." She turned to leave, then hesitated at the door. "Elena, I hope you know this wasn't about you. It never was. Jason's choices came from his own emptiness, not from anything you lacked." She met my eyes, and for the first time in 6 years, I believe she meant it. "Take care of yourself," she said softly. "You too." The door closed behind her, and I let myself breathe out the heaviness her apology stirred up. It didn't fix things, it didn't erase anything, but it mattered. Over the next couple of months, my life quietly reshaped itself. I threw myself into teaching. My students, oblivious to adult heartbreak, filled my days with chaotic energy and small victories. My debate team went to regionals and won second place. They screamed as if they'd taken home Olympic gold. I bought them pizza with extra cheese. On weekends, I drove to small towns a few hours away and walked through old bookstores and antique shops, places with dust motes floating through sunbeams. I relearned solitude. Not loneliness, solitude. There's a difference no one tells you about. And then, one afternoon, Jason reached out. Not with an apology, not with a plea, with a request. "Can we meet, just for closure?" I stared at the message for a long moment before responding. "One coffee, that's all." We met at a quiet cafe 2 towns over. He arrived early, nervous, thinner, wearing a button-down that looked wrinkled in a way he never used to allow. "Elena," he said, standing when I approached. "Jason?" He waited until we sat before speaking. "I've been in therapy," he said. Not dramatically, just plainly, trying to figure out why I did what I did. I nodded. "And?" He looked at his hands. "I didn't like who I was unless someone was telling me I should. I needed validation from my boss, from my parents, from you, from anyone, really. And when Lana started feeding that, I chased it." I didn't interrupt. "I kept thinking," he went on, "that you were content because you didn't want more. But what I didn't understand was that you weren't asking for too little. I was expecting too much. Expecting you to fill a void that wasn't your responsibility." His voice wavered. You were the healthiest relationship I ever had, and I sabotaged it because I didn't feel worthy of it. It doesn't excuse anything, but I'm sorry. I let that sit between us. Finally, I said thank you for saying it honestly. He looked relieved, but also sad. A quiet, resigned sadness that no apology could mend. Are you seeing anyone? He asked gently. I shook my head. No, are you? He laughed softly. Not a chance. I'm trying to figure out who I am without someone holding me up. That's a good place to start, I said. He nodded, eyes glossy. Elena, I know we're done. I know there's no fixing this. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. I hope you become someone you're proud of, I said. Truly. We finished our coffees. We stood. We said goodbye. And that was the last time I saw him. Edward still texts me once in a while. Simple check-ins. Nothing heavy. Rachel invited me to a barbecue last month. I went. Her husband gave me a warm hug, so warm it made something unclench in my chest. Life didn't collapse. It realigned. 8 months after that disastrous dinner, I wake up every morning in a home that feels like mine. I breathe air that isn't thick with expectations. I choose my days, my pace, my peace. And I've learned something important. I was never the burden. I was the anchor, the calm, the constant. And now, finally, I am the one setting myself free. The strange thing about starting over at 35 is that everyone expects you to feel broken. People tilt their heads when they talk to you, soften their voices, offer advice you didn't ask for. They look at you like you've survived a fire, charred edges, smoke still clinging to your clothes. But the truth is, life after Jason wasn't ashes. It was open sky. It happened gradually. The way seasons change. You don't notice the first cool morning until the light hits your skin differently. You don't notice the shift inside yourself until one day you catch your reflection and think, oh, there you are. I felt that for the first time one ordinary Tuesday morning. I was standing in the hallway at school, juggling a stack of quizzes and a travel mug of burnt teacher coffee, when I realized I wasn't rushing. I wasn't bracing for anything. My shoulders weren't tight. My jaw wasn't clenched. I was just living. The bell rang. Students flooded the hallway like an incoming tide. Someone dropped a binder. Someone else shouted about lunch. A kid tried to pet the class skeleton we kept by the door and almost knocked it over. Chaos. Life. And I felt light. That same week, I took my debate team to state qualifiers. Watching those teenagers argue passionately about civic engagement and economic policy reminded me that ambition isn't about climbing corporate ladders. It's about caring, about showing up, about having a voice. They placed third. We celebrated with cheap ice cream, and one student handed me a tiny potted cactus and said, because even plants that look stabby need love. I laughed so hard I cried. It was the first time I cried from joy in years. A few weeks later, I bought myself something I'd always wanted, a used motorcycle. Not because I wanted to chase freedom down a highway, because I wanted to choose something for myself, something that had nothing to do with being sensible. I took lessons on weekends. My instructor was a woman in her 50s with sun-browned skin and a laugh that sounded like gravel. She told me I was a natural. No one had ever called me a natural at anything physical before, so I kept going, and I got better. The wind on my face, the world rushing past. There was something almost holy about it, something that cracked me open in a way therapy couldn't. Movement is its own kind of healing. Then one day, while I was grading essays at a cafe near my new apartment, Rachel walked in. Elena, she said, surprised. I smiled. Hey. She sat down without asking, like she wasn't sure I'd let her stay if she gave me the chance to protest. You look different, she said softly. Good different? Really good different. We talked for almost 2 hours. She told me Jason was trying, really trying, to rebuild himself. He had a part-time job at a smaller company and was staying with a friend until he got back on his feet. Their parents were in therapy too. According to Rachel, family truth-telling had become a weekly sport. We're all unlearning things, she said. It's messy. It usually is, I replied. She swallowed. I'm sorry we didn't see who you were sooner. I didn't answer right away. Finally, I said, I think you did see me. I just don't think you knew what to do with someone who wasn't performing for your approval. She nodded, eyes shining. That's fair. Before she left, she hugged me. Really hugged me. The kind of hug that says, I'm sorry and thank you, and please don't disappear from our lives. I didn't promise anything, but I didn't pull away either. Healing doesn't require erasing people, just boundaries. Months passed. I built routines that were mine. Saturday mornings became farmers' market days. I bought flowers I couldn't identify and fruit I hadn't tasted before. Some spoiled in my fridge because I forgot about them, and that was okay. I made new friends, other teachers, neighbors in my building, the barista who remembered my order better than Jason ever had. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. The pages filled with thoughts I never had room to think during the years I spent holding someone else's insecurities together. And then one evening, it happened. Not a dramatic epiphany, just a quiet realization. I was sitting on my balconette, the tiny iron thing, pretending to be a balcony, watching the sunset melt down the sky. The city hummed below. A dog barked somewhere down the block. A couple laughed as they passed my building. And I realized I didn't miss Jason, not even a little. I missed who I had tried to be for him. I missed the illusion of partnership. I missed the idea of what we could have been. But him? The real him? No. Letting go didn't feel like loss anymore. It felt like release. A few nights later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was short. Congratulations on finding your peace. EC. Edward. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back. Thank you. I hope your family finds theirs too. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. Some endings don't require applause. 1 year after the dinner that changed everything, I stood in front of my class writing on the board. The topic was ancient civilizations. How they rise, how they fall, how they rebuild. A hand shot up in the back row. Ms. Hartley, do you think people are the same? Like, do we fall and rebuild too? I smiled. Yes, I said, absolutely. Falling isn't failure. It's how we learn what we're made of. I hesitated, then added, sometimes breaking apart is the only way to discover you're meant to build something better. The student nodded thoughtfully, and the room settled into that warm, buzzing silence of minds working. As I turned back to the board, sunlight streamed through the window and caught dust in the air, tiny flecks drifting like glitter. And for a moment, I felt exactly where I was supposed to be. Not behind, not lost, not starting over. Starting forward. I wasn't sensible. I